Good day, everyone. Today, we will discuss the Commission of Independence, Filipino Grievances against Governor Wood. Reporters are Ursel E. Salindo, Cherish Angel G. Balikig, and Cherish Ivy S. Canoy.
To the background of the author about the Filipino grievances against Governor Wood. So Gregorio Zaid is the author of Filipino grievances against Governor Wood. He was a politician. He served as the mayor in Pagsanhan, Laguna from 1971 to 1975. He is a historian and writer. He is known as the Dean of the Philippine Historians and one of the founders of International Association of Historians of Asia, and a legendary historian of Philippine history. So Gregorio Zaid is a writer, or was a writer, and a historian. He writes history. Okay, as a legendary historian of Philippine history, he has been writing all his life. He wrote 67 books, some of which are used as history textbooks in the country's high schools and universities. So, di siya basta-basta nga historian. So, a legendary historian of the Philippine history. So, daghan siya og mga books nga gi-write. So, Gregorio Zaid, I can say that a very intelligent person, and he has also published more than 500 historical articles in local and foreign journals. So see, he is very intelligent person, a rookie historian. Muna siya, si Gregorio Zaid, a writer, a historian. Okay, Zaid's historical works. These are historical works. Such historical works tend to be lively prose to communicate the history of the Philippines with intuitive feelings, to try to look at history with a fair eye, but he has also been criticized because it puts the colonial experience of the Philippines below that of the Spanish and Americans, a simplistic positive view. It has to do with his background. So, ang iyahang historical works is, ang iyahang positive is to communicate, positive side, to communicate the history of the Philippines, to express the intuitive feelings, unsay tinuod nga history sa Philippines, to communicate the history of the Philippines with intuitive feelings, to try to look at history with a fair eye. So, kuan bitaw kung bitaw ang iyahang mga works is naga-express siya that naadyoy history ang Philippines. Ang history is very important for the people to know para masabtan nila unsay history sa past nga nahitabo, past nga events nga nahitabo in the last century. So muna siya, but it has also been criticized because it puts the colonial experience of the Philippines nga ang Philippines is under the colonization of Spanish and Americans. So nagpijapon siya yung mga negative ng mga comments na po siya mga positive unsay purpose why he wrote the history of the Philippines. Okay, the Filipino Grievances against Governor Wood. So this is a document written in a form of protest, particularly against the Executive Order number 37. So this is a document, is a form of protest that Gregorio Zaid writes for the constitutional representatives of the Filipino people. So the document served as an impeachment request for Governor Wood. Muna siya ang it is a document nga gi-write ni Gregorio Zaid against Governor Wood. So malaman niyo sa ibaba kung bakit kung bakit may mga grievances ang Filipinos against Governor Wood. It was approved by the Commission on Independence on November 17, 1926. So na-approve siya sa Commission of Independence. Because Filipino kanang kuan sila, independent sila. Independent ta sa una. So naatay freedom nga mukuan. Mo reklamo. Okay, who is Governor Wood? Si Leonard Wood. He was a major general who arrived in the Philippine Islands in 1903 after his services in Cuba. So, he was a United States Army Major General, became the military governor of Cuba from 1899 to 1902, and then Governor General of the Philippines from 1921 to 1927. So nahimo siya nga Governor General diri sa Philippines last 1921 until 1927. So nag-serve siya for 6 years or 7 years. 7 years. In 1903, he arrived at the Philippines. He became the commanding governor of the Moro province, head of the civil government with a legislative government responsible for 5 districts. He was the commanding general troops in the Department of Mindanao and Sulu. So, siya ang nagmuno bilang Governor General in the Philippines. He was the commanding general in the Department of Mindanao and Sulu. So nakapamuno siya sa Mindanao and Sulu. So this is Governor Leonard Wood. In short, he was appointed governor of the Moro province, comprising the Southern Islands and Mindanao. So he was the Major General who arrived in the Philippines.
Filipino grievances against Governor Wood, the promise of America. During American time, American people vowed as Filipino to train in the art of self-government and granting the independence of our country. And it was done for the benefit of Filipino people, not the American. The Filipinos trusted the Americans with 20 years of civil government. They cooperated and applied themselves patiently and diligently. American flag, emblem of freedom, symbols of altruism. Altruism is a belief or a practice of disinterested and selfless concerns for the well-being of others. Leonard Wood was then assigned by President of America to be the Governor General. During that time, the President was Calvin Coolidge. The President of the USA advised Congress of America to fulfill their promise since the goal has been reached. Major General Leonard was sent to Philippines as Governor General. Expectation and reality. Major General Leonard Wood was appointed as Governor General of the Philippines on October 14, 1921. The Filipinos expected that in his administration, the same spirit as cooperation would be maintained among Filipinos and Americans. Filipino expected that in his administration, the cooperation would be maintained, but it turns out that under his administration, the expectation that they had were the exact opposite. Governor Wood has abused his authority, which caused a lot of difficulties for the Filipinos. List of Governor Wood's arbitrary act. He has refused his assent to laws which were the most wholesome and necessary heads of department. He has set enough both the legal authority and responsibility for the Philippine heads of department. He has substituted his constitutional advisors for a group of military attaches without legal standing in the government and not responsible to the people. He has reversed the policy of Filipinizing the service of the government by appointing Americans even when Filipinos of proven capacity were available. Leonard Woods changed the Philippine government policy by appointing Americans even when Filipinos has a capacity. He has obstructed the carrying out of national economic policies during adopted by the legislature, merely because they are in conflict with his personal views. He has rendered merely perfunctory the power of the legislature to pass the annual appropriation law by reviving items in the preceding year, after vetoing the corresponding items of the Court Appropriation Act and the flagrant violation of organic law. He has made appointments to the position
He has used certain public funds to grant additional compensation to public officials in clear violation law. He has arrogated unto himself the right of exercising the powers granted by law to the Emergency Board after abolishing said board in the ground that its powers involve an unlawful delegations of legislative authority. He has unduly interfered in administration of justice. Ginamit ni Governor Wood yung mga pampublikong pondo upang magbigay ng karagdagang bayad sa mga pampublikong opisyal sa malinaw na batas ng pagdagdag, at labis na kanyang pinagmamalaki ang kanyang sarili, ang karapatang gamitin niya ang kapangyarihang ipinagkaloob ng batas sa Emergency Board, at si Governor Wood ay labis na nakikialam sa pamamahala ng hustisya. He has refused to obtain the advice of Senate in making appointments where such advice is required by the Organic Act. He has refused to submit the Senate appointment for vacancies occurring during the recess of legislature in contravention of the Organic Act. He has continued in office nominees whose appointments have been rejected by the Senate. Sa tinanggihan ng Governor Wood ang pagkuha ng payo ng Senado sa paggawa ng mga appointment kung saan ay nagsasabing ang payo ay hinihiling ng Organic Act. At tumanggi rin siyang isumiti yung mga appointment ng Senado para sa bakanting nangyayari sa panahon ng paghinto ng legislature na taliwas sa Organic Act. Nagpatuloy lamang siya sa nominado sa opisina ang kanyang appointment kahit tinanggihan or nireject na ito ng Senado. He has usurped legislative powers by imposing conditions on legislative measures approved by him. He has an administration of affairs in Mindanao brought about the condition which has given rise to discord, the dissonation between certain groups of Christian and Mohammedan Filipinos. He has by his policies created strained relation between resident American and Filipinos. So, kinuha niya ang kapangyarihang pambatasan sa pamamagitan ng pagpataw ng kondisyon ng mga panukalang pambatasan na inaprubuhan niya mismo. Siya at yung mga tagapangasiwa niya sa gawain sa Mindanao ay nagdala ng kondisyon na nagbunga ng pagtatalo sa pagitan ng grupo ng mga Kristiyano at Mohammeding Pilipino. At sa pamamagitan ng kanilang mga patakaran o kanilang mga policies na ginagawa, nilikha niya ang makitid na ugnayan sa pagitan ng residente na Amerika at ang mga Pilipino. He has endeavored in the pretext of getting the government out of the business to impose of all the companies capitalized by the government worth many millions of the people's money of powerful America interest. He has sanctioned the campaign of insidious propaganda in United States against Filipino people under aspirations. He has attempted to close the Philippine National Bank, so necessary to economic development of the country. Ginawa ni Governor Wood na alisin ang negosyo ng gobyerno upang itapon ang lahat ng kumpanyang napital ng gobyerno na nagkakahalaga ng milyong-milyong pera ng mga tao sa malakas na interes ng Amerika. Pinarusahan niya yung mga kampanya na mapanlikhang propaganda sa United States laban sa mamayang Pilipino at sa kanyang mga aspirations o sa mga kanyang adhikain. Tinangka rin niya na ipasara yung Philippine National Bank. At yung Philippine National Bank, yun ay napaka-importante o napakahalaga sa pagpapaunlad ng ekonomiya ng bansang Pilipinas. He has adopted the practice of intervening in and controlling directly to its minute details the affair of Philippine government, both insular and local, in violation of self-government. He has instantly sought the amendment of our laws approved by the Congress of the United States, which amendment would open up the resources of our country to exploitation by the predatory interest. So, mas lalong pinagtibay ni Governor Wood ang pagsasanay sa pakikialam at direktang kontrolado niya ang mga detalye nito ang gawain ng pamahalaan ng Pilipinas kapwa sa insular at lokal sa paglabag ng sariling pamahalaan. Talagang hinagad ni Governor Wood na susugin ang ating batas na inaprubahan ng Kongreso ng United States na nagbubukas ng mga mapagkukunan ng ating bansa para sa pagsasamantala sa interes ng ating bansa. Filipino grievances against Governor Wood. Wood was accused of validating the Jones Act due to his abuse of veto power. Wood vetoed a total of 16 bills with the advice of his cabinet, but since he was not elected by the Filipino peoples, his vetoes were supposedly invalid unless they supported by the Filipino. He was called out for not seeking legislative advice because of legislature represents the will of the people, when he released on the cabinet instead. Due to his anti-Filipino policies, all Filipino members of the cabinet resigned, which was then called the cabinet crisis of 1923. So those are the Filipino grievances against Governor Wood with his arbitrary acts that leads all the Filipino experience so much difficulties and hardships in exercising their rights and freedom. So instead of acquiring freedom, we are fooled by the false promise of America. But I'm not generalizing the people of America. Instead, the administration of Governor Wood. Filipino set aside their personal and political interest and formed a united stand against the Wood administration. The protests. In the face of this critical situation, we, the constitutional representative of the Filipino people, meet to deliberate upon the present difficulties existing in the government of Philippine Islands to determine how best to preserve the supremacy and majesty of the laws to safeguard the right and liberties of our people. Having faith in the sense of justice of the people of the United States, and is inspired by her patriotic example in the early days of her history, do hereby in our behalf and in the name of the Filipino people solemnly and publicly make known our most vigorous protests against the arbitrary acts and usurpations of the present Governor-General of the Philippine Island, particularly against Executive Order Number 37. So, the Filipinos place their trust in the American pledge to help them acquire the self-government and independence. So, because of the protest or through this protest, Filipinos voice out their sentiments regarding the oppressions and undemocratic acts of their present Governor General Major General Leonardo Wood. So, this was written with the intentions of making record of the grievances that the Filipino people had against Governor Wood, and that their protest against his usurpations. Contribution of the document in understanding the grand narrative of the Philippine history. So first, knowing the condition of the Filipinos. Filipinos often experience hardship in their lives, and leaders are supposed to help them instead they put them lower. So instead, Filipinos is trusting their leaders, but leaders are put them lower. Manipulation of the policies and laws. They have easily manipulated the laws. They have created a new policy making it possible to easily change a law in favor to him which was against the organic law. So they can easily manipulate the law they have created. And all the law that they have created was in favor with them. And it's very unfair with the Filipino. And disobeyed the Organic Act. Organic Act is a system of foundations of the government, corporation, or any other organization's body of rules. A constitution is a particular form of organic law for a sovereign state. And the last one is Executive Order Number 37. So Governor Wood made his own rule and ordered the issue of his own good. We are fooled by the false premise. He wants to take over the Philippines because he is saying that Filipinos are less compared to Americans according to an interview done by Robert Lowe Bacon. General Wood said that there would be strife, disorder, bloodshed if he left. He also said that industry, trade, and credit would be ruined with an inevitable concomitants. So, the contribution of the document about the Filipino grievances against Governor Wood was we Filipino in the new generation was able to inform about the past event happening during the Philippine-American War. We know about the situations of the Filipino who are trying to do things to get the freedom and the rights against the arbitrary acts of our leaders, of the leaders in the past generation. So, and of course, we are able to inform how they overcome the selfish government, and it was because of the Filipino united and stand to battle against the arbitrary acts and the Executive Order 37 of Governor Wood. Relevance of the document to the millennials. So, ano ba ang kahalagahan ng dokumentong ito sa atin or sa mga new generation? So, first is, we become independent people because of the past. We learn from our mistakes. Yes, that's true. We learn from the past. So, history is very important because we can gain knowledge about the happenings of the past event. And second is, the people expected that Governor Wood will help them
and establishing a Filipino leader used power and office to manipulate the Filipinos. So instead that we are expecting, or Filipinos are expecting before, that Governor Wood will help them to be rise, but instead Governor Wood put them lower. And we learn from the previous government, and today we connect the wrongdoings of others. Yes. So we learned, because we learned of the past. In today's time, we are able to connect the wrongdoings of the other leaders. So we cannot deny that today's the politicians who are not doing their jobs, and several accusations are being thrown to these politicians, diba? There are a lot of politicians who are not doing their job, but however, not everyone are impeached with the accusations. Today, there are no politicians in our country who are treating us about the independency of our country. Because of the past, we are not able to be treated by the leaders about our independence and our freedom. However, accusations and corruptions are rampant among them who serve the nation, some of them used to unjustifiable reasons to avoid the prison. So, this historical account, the Commission of Independence, Filipino Grievances against Governor Wood, uncovered grievances of Filipino people with regard to how the grant of the self-governance in independence was delayed due to the anomalies on the deaths of the Governor General Wood. And Filipinos have always known their worth, through gained intellects, and had a courage to fight for it, leading to the rise of the Philippine-American War. So, because we are new Filipino, we always fight for our freedoms. And that's how we acquired our freedom from the America. And that's all. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something about our report. Thank you.